Well, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Bachy Gilai, and I'm the Associate Director of the Value Chain Innovation Initiative, which is a research initiative here at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. And today I'm going to share with you some highlights from a white paper that we recently published called The Road Toward the Circular Value Chain. So first, what is a circular economy? I assume many in the room know the answer to this question, but just in case. So to explain what a circular economy means, we'll start with an overview of what a linear consumption model is, which is the model that we're all familiar with. It involves taking resources out of the earth, using them to make products and services, and then throwing them away once we don't need them anymore. And this creates a lot of problems. It puts excessive pressure on natural ecosystems, which often cannot regenerate fast enough to keep up with the rate of consumption. Making and disposing of products create a lot of pollution and can also lead to other issues such as human health issues and loss of biodiversity. And also because some of those resources have finite supply and can be found only in certain geographical locations, then it can lead to uncertain supply of those raw materials and to price fluctuations. A circular economy aims to address these issues. It's based on three key principles: the elimination of waste and pollution, keeping products and material in circulation so that we don't need to rely so much on new materials and also we create less waste, and regenerate nature. Ultimately, the goal is to decouple the economic activity from the consumption of those finite resources. Those key principles of a circular economy can be applied throughout the value chain, starting from the design of new products all the way to the time when those products reach their end of life. I listed here some of the relevant strategies, these and others, and also several case studies and examples are all included in the white paper. Here today, in the interest of time, I'll just share with you a couple of examples that can illustrate how those principles can be applied and the benefits that they can provide. The first example is of toy manufacturer Hasbro and their frustration-free packaging. So at the bottom of this slide, you can see a picture of one of the toys that they sell. It's a set of Ghostbusters figures. And as you can see, the packaging is relatively big. All the parts are spread apart so that it's easier for shoppers to see what exactly is inside. For the same reason, it also includes this plastic window. And so while these features are very, very helpful for shoppers that shop at physical stores, they're also quite wasteful, and also because of the mix of cardboard and plastic, it means that this packaging is harder to recycle. And because all those features are not really needed for shoppers that shop online, then Hasbro decided to design a new packaging specifically for those items that are sold online. They created a new packaging that is much smaller because all the items fit snugly inside the packaging. It also is sturdy enough so that the items can be shipped in their original box and you don't need an extra shipping box to send it to the customer. And it doesn't include any plastics, and it's 100% recyclable. So the environmental benefits are clear. In addition, there are also some business benefits that this program or this initiative offered to Hasbro. It includes lower material costs. Because the packaging is much smaller, you need less materials to make it. Also lower shipping costs. One, because you don't need this extra shipping box, and also because of the smaller dimensions, then it takes less space in the delivery truck, and the shipping prices are based partly, at least, on the dimensions of the packaging. And finally, there is also higher customer satisfaction because those packagings are much easier to open compared to the more traditional ones. The second example is of Cisco Refresh, which is their line of fully certified remanufactured equipment. Basically, the way it works is that whenever Cisco customers, say, upgrade their existing equipment, or for any other reason they don't need the equipment that they currently own, then Cisco collects it. They repair whatever is needed to be repaired. They fully upgrade all the software and hardware as needed. Then the equipment goes through extensive testing. And then they offer those remanufactured pieces of equipment to customers at a much lower price compared to original, like new pieces of equipment, and still with the same service and warranty as new equipment. The environmental benefits include a reduction in the dependence on new raw material because most of this equipment is pre-existing. Also for the same reason, because you're reusing the same piece of equipment, then you divert those materials from reaching landfills. And in fact, Cisco estimates that last year, through this program, they were able to divert more than 2.5 million pounds of materials from reaching landfills. And finally, some studies suggest that by remanufacturing an existing product, companies this can lead to up to 98% reduction in the amount of CO2 emissions compared to making a new piece of the same product. There are also some benefits to customers. Those pieces of equipment are more affordable, and so those customers that maybe could not afford the new equipment can now purchase a remanufactured one. And also because all those pieces of equipment are currently in inventory, it means that the delivery time is much faster. And like I mentioned before, they still get the same level of support and warranty as if they purchased a new equipment. There are also some business benefits to Cisco. One is the additional stream of revenue. Each piece of equipment can now generate multiple streams of revenue instead of just once when they sell it. In addition, they gain access to customers that may be more price sensitive and could not afford their new equipment. There are also lower costs because most of this product already exists and they just need to replace a few parts. They don't need to build a whole piece of equipment from scratch. And there are also smaller exposure to risk that is associated with global supply chains because all the remanufacturing activities take place locally, whereas the manufacturing of the new equipment takes place in places like China, Korea, Taiwan, so it's much further away. I also want to point out that for such programs to be successful, it's important to start thinking about remanufacturing early on when you first design the product, because features like modular design or no use of adhesives can make it much easier later on to repair and upgrade this equipment. So as those examples illustrate, in addition to the environmental benefits, circular initiatives can also bring with them a number of business benefits, including higher revenues, lower costs, and smaller exposure to risk. At the same time, companies that are looking to implement those type of initiatives may face a number of barriers. They can be knowledge barriers, starting from the very basic of bringing everyone up to the same page with regards to what is the circular economy and why it's so important, to figuring out what opportunities to pursue that will be most beneficial, to understanding what best practices and solutions are already available that can be used. There can also be financial barriers. For one, some of those initiatives may require an upfront capital investment, which can be significant in times. In addition, making products that were designed with circularity in mind may be more expensive. There can also be consumer-related barriers. Some of those initiatives require the collaboration of consumers. For example, if you offer for sale a pre-owned item, then you need the customer to be willing to purchase secondhand. And finally, there may also be unintended consequences. You may think you're doing the right thing, but you find out down the road that there are actually some unintended negative consequences that you didn't think about. Luckily, there are different ways in which you can address those challenges. I will briefly mention here a few that are related to those knowledge barriers, but again, in the paper, you can find much more detailed discussion about these and other barriers. So employee training can be helpful in bringing everyone to the same page with regards to circular economy. You can also then provide employees with specific skills relevant for their job. Quantitative analysis can be helpful in identifying those opportunities that are likely to provide the most meaningful results, but still be feasible in terms of the time and money and other resources that you need to put into them. Industry alliances and NGOs can serve as a knowledge hub and so provide access to information such as best practices and available solutions. And also peer collaboration can be very helpful when you need to develop new solutions because then you can spread the risk among several parties and also accelerate the development process. Finally, I just want to mention briefly that while what I talked about so far focused on businesses and what they can do, they alone cannot complete the transition to a circular economy. You need all stakeholders to do their share. I mentioned already before NGOs, alliances, and consumers and what they can do. I'll just mention very briefly a couple of others that may be more relevant for the audience here in the room. One is research and academic institutions that can not only be involved in research and the development of new solutions, but also teach the employees across all levels of the organization, provide them with the right skills and knowledge that is relevant for a circular economy. And investors, I mentioned that there may be some financial barriers to implementation, and so it's important for investors to provide funding to those companies that develop relevant solutions, but also to those that are trying to implement those new solutions. So in summary, the linear consumption model is reaching its limits. The transition to a circular economy is not easy, but many opportunities exist, and you can always start small and then expand those programs. And all stakeholders have a role to play in the transition to a circular economy. I also listed here the website of the Value Chain Innovation Initiative from where you can access the white paper and my email address in case you want to get in touch with further comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have time for one question.
I was wondering if there's a push for a certification process so that at the consumer level, there is a way for consumers to identify which businesses are actually adhering to the circular economy. Is that something in the making or not?
I don't know if there is currently anything that is available, like you see on products, organic, certified organic, or something like this, something similar for circular economy. But I do know that there are different standards organizations that are aiming to, as one of these things, to develop such standards that it's easier to figure out which company meets those specifications and which are not.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.